The New York Islanders looked like a team that was on the last game of a 7-game road trip. They played uninspired hockey. We'll talk about what went wrong and why that impacts their playoff chances next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thank you for helping to make Locked On the number one sports podcast network. I'm Gil Martin. I have been covering the New York Islanders for 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 till the modern era. So glad you could join us today and talk a little Islanders hockey. And we've got a lot to get to on today's show. A disappointing, lackluster effort by the Islanders in their loss in Seattle. We'll have our key takeaways, our hero and go to the game. We'll tell you why this loss just doesn't bode well for the Islanders' playoff chances. And we'll discuss one aspect of the game that was really lacking that could have a big impact on this team if it isn't corrected. Let's start with the 4-1 loss in Seattle. And look, the Kraken are not as bad a team as a lot of people think they are. They are a team that is above 500. They are fighting for a playoff spot in the Western Conference. And Lane Lambert is getting more out of this young team than perhaps a lot of people expected. That being said, the New York Islanders just didn't have a lot of energy, a lot of hustle, a lot of intensity in this game. And whether this team was just tired at the end of a long 7-game West Canada and West Coast road trip, whether they had one foot on the plane, all of those things you can debate, but it just did not look like the effort was there. And the Islanders took a 1-0 lead early, really pretty power play goal. Anthony Duclair now 8 goals in his last 8 games. Again, Cal Ritchie with a beautiful pass, setting the play up. Matthew Barzal making a really good play to start that part of the rush and that part of the eventual goal-scoring play. But after that, it was just a dead zone. And overall, throughout the game, the Islanders totaled 25 shots, same number of shots as the Kraken. But again, I always like to look at the shot chart, and too many of those Islanders shots were from far away. They did not go to the net enough. They shot wide a lot, which, that's going to happen. But overall, just that effort, that intensity, the energy that you need to have in order to win a hockey game, especially on the road, it just wasn't there. And I'll give you an example. Big goal against in this game. Capo Caco. Late in the second period, Islanders had just fallen behind 2-1, less than 3 minutes earlier. And puck was shot down the ice by the Kraken. It looked like a potential icing. Scott Mayfield turns the wrong way, probably not intentionally. For some reason, the linesman waved off the icing. I guess he believed that Mayfield, if he turned the right way, could have played the puck. It's a questionable call, okay? I'm not going to say it was a terrible call. I'm not going to say it was a good call. I'm saying it's a questionable call. But here's the bottom line. Yeah, you expect an icing and you don't get it, but you can't stop. You play to the whistle. Mayfield did not play to the whistle, had his stick lifted, turnover, Kakko scores the goal. Islanders end up down 3-1 at the end of 2 periods, and that made any comeback a lot less likely. And it was a momentum killer. And again, it's not that mistakes are never going to happen, because these guys are human. They make mistakes, but it's the kind of mistakes. This was a mistake that you make because you're not concentrating, or a mistake that you make because you're not sharp. And that's the kind of thing you just don't like to see. I understand this was the last game of a 7-game road trip. I understand this team has to be tired. I understand they want to go home and see their families and their kids, their friends, their wives, whoever. But you got to play the game before you get on the plane. And this team just didn't have it tonight. As a result of this loss, the Islanders fall into 3rd place now in the Metropolitan Division, because the Penguins won and they now pass the Islanders into 2nd place. And I'm not that worried. I mean, there's still 32 games left. This was game 50. But you don't want to give away points for free. And that's what they did. You don't want to give away points for nothing. And ultimately, if they gave a great effort but came up short, I could handle it, but the effort just didn't feel like it was there. Certainly not after the first, 5 or 6 minutes of the game. After the Duclair goal, it was just like took their foot off the gas. And, credit to Duclair, 8 goals in 8 games, playing really well, getting some chemistry with Barzal, getting some chemistry with Cal Ritchie on the power play. You like to see that. And this is the Anthony Duclair that the Islanders hoped they were getting when they signed him last year. Not that he's going to, score a goal a game over the course of a season, but he can get you to 20. I mean, as of right now, Duclair has 12 goals. He's on pace for about 20 after a very, very slow start. That's encouraging. But overall, you needed more. I mean, it was like Duclair, Ritchie, and Barzal, maybe Matthew Schaefer were playing really intensely. And then there were guys who just seemed, I don't want to say disinterested, but not as engaged as we would like them to be. And you can't have that. This is the NHL. Even if you were playing the worst team in the league, you've got to put forth the effort. Now, Patrick Waugh sat Mark Gatcomb in this game. And I think that was a mistake. I really like what Gatcomb adds to the 4th line. And Waugh shuffled the lines, as he often does. But I just didn't like these combinations that were put out there. And ultimately, Maxim Siplikov back in the lineup on a line with Shabanov and Cizikas didn't do much. He had almost 10 minutes on the ice, Siplikov. But was he really noticeable in this game? Was he, doing anything that really looked helpful? He had 1 shot on goal and 1 hit in 9 minutes and 14 seconds of ice time. But it just wasn't there. I mean, the effort, the intensity, the hunger just did not seem to be there. And it's just frustrating. And I did a little math, and I came across these numbers that really kind of scared me. So try these numbers on for size. And again, the Islanders power play 1 for 7 in this game. 7 shots on goal total in those 7 power plays. That included a brief 5-on-3. And you get a 5-on-3, and then you get a power play 8 seconds later. You take a penalty. I think it was Duclair cancels the power play. But the power play was lackadaisical. But here's the number that scared me. The Islanders' second power play unit in this game, which was, and it was Jonathan Drouin, Anders Lee, Simon Holmstrom, Max Shabanov, and Tony DeAngelo as the power play quarterback. All 5 of those players this year have combined to score 33 goals on the season. Connor McDavid has 30 by himself. I mean, I don't mean to knock these guys, but is there a less intimidating second power play unit out there than that right now? And, I'll give you the fact that Bo Horvat is out of the lineup. So probably when Horvat returns, one of the guys on the top power play unit, maybe Richie, maybe Duclair, they'll drop down to the second unit, and one of these guys will come off the second power play unit. But that's not a great power play unit. And I'm not saying there isn't potential there, but they're just not producing. You got to get more out of that power play unit. It's been struggling all year. Came into this game ranked 28th in the league, and then you go 1 for 7, lowering that percentage. So hopefully they figure it out, but it's been a long time since the power play has been clicking. And even though the 1 goal in this game came with the man advantage, the 6 power plays afterwards, not only did they not score, they just didn't seem to create many opportunities, didn't have a lot of zone time, just didn't accomplish much. All right, we've got more to get to on today's show. We'll have our hero and go to the game and some more takeaways from it. We'll talk about one statistic that really scares me about the chances of this Islanders team making the playoffs and going on a playoff run. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who was with the New York Islanders during the 05-06 season, played with the Rangers as well. Let's see if you can guess who this Montreal native was. We've got that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different experience, and the only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. Long queues, endless screens, and prices that changed at checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to you, the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The app is incredibly easy to use. Browsing, comparing, and buying tickets took just minutes, and the zone deals are clutch. You choose the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing NHL tickets available for as low as $25 makes it easy to plan a game night. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off at Game Time. If you haven't done so already, it's time to check out our new Everydayer Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Islanders, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You'll also get an invite into the members-only Locked On Everydayers Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. And I am in the Discord chat, so always great to interact with hardcore Islander fans and, talk a little Islanders hockey. So check out the link in the show notes or go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer for more information. Let's talk about our hero and GOAT of the game. I got to give the hero to the Duke. Scoring the only goal, getting the job done, 8 goals in 8 games. And, there just weren't a lot of other candidates. Let's face it. You go over this game and it wasn't a pretty performance. And the GOAT of the game has got to be special teams. The power play going, again, 0 for 6 in its last 6. And the penalty kill, giving up a goal that tied the game midway through the first period, just not good enough on special teams. And it's something that has really, really hurt the New York Islanders. And, they are just not clicking. Now, Patrick Waugh kind of rolled his 4 lines in this game, despite all the penalties. Siplikov had the least amount of ice time among forwards at 9 minutes and 14 seconds, but no Islanders forward had more than 20-25 on the ice. Matthew Schaefer, again, 25-54, almost 26 minutes. But this wasn't a grade A Schaefer game. No shots on goal, no block shots, 1 giveaway. It wasn't vintage Matthew Schaefer. And other than that, they just didn't create enough opportunities, just didn't play with the intensity that you need. Anthony Duclair, Matthew Barzal, both -3 in this game. Anders Lee, Emil Heineman, and Scott Mayfield all -2. Obviously, when the only goal you score comes on the power play, nobody is plus. But again, just getting beat. Now, hopefully, the Islanders have said that Saturday, which is their next game, gives them a little time to get back to the Eastern time zone and get used to, getting back on the normal schedule. But hopefully Bo Horvat is back Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres. We'll discuss more on that if we hear something tomorrow or even Saturday morning. But you got to get your best goal scorer, your best offensive player back in the lineup for a team that is just kind of struggling to score. And it just wasn't there last night. And look, overall, you're 3-1 on this road trip. And it wasn't an easy road trip. Let's be honest, okay? The travel, the opponents, some of the opponents were tougher than others, but overall, the Islanders did the minimum they needed to do, which is to tread water. You're without Bo Horvat. You're on the 7-game road trip. Excuse me. And, they did the best they could under the circumstances. I don't like seeing this team, with the lack of effort tonight or last night. But overall, I'm going to say this road trip was minimally successful at 3-1. You want to be at least 500 on the road. And now the good news is that this team, A, should be getting back, 1, Bo Horvat, and B, is going to be all on the East Coast coming up. And the next 4 games are all against teams that you really, really want to beat. Buffalo, who is playing really well as of late. Not going to be an easy opponent back at home. Philadelphia, a team you're battling for playoff position with in the Metropolitan Division. And then a home and home with the New York Rangers. 3 division games, 4 conference games. The Rangers probably not really in the playoff hunt at this point, but the Flyers and Sabres certainly are. And, you know, when you look at the standings, you really have to understand that there is no margin for error. Because right now, as I mentioned, the Islanders have fallen back into 3rd place. They're tied in points with the Penguins, but the Penguins have a game in hand. But when you look at the playoff races right now, the Islanders are 2 points ahead of Toronto, 4 points ahead of Philadelphia, 5 points ahead of New Jersey and Washington. Toronto's the cutoff. Toronto has 57 points in 50 games. The Islanders have 59 points in 50 games. You are 2 points away from not being in a playoff spot. There is no margin for error this year. And as well as the Islanders have played this year, and as much as they have exceeded expectations, they're going to have to keep playing well to make the playoffs. And we'll see if they're able to do that down the stretch. It'll be important. We have got a lot more to get to. I'm going to talk about one stat that really upset me when I looked at it after this game, and what that stat could mean for the Islanders. A, their chances of making the playoffs, and B, their chances of doing anything once they get there, if they do. We'll talk about that next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Here's the stat that killed me. And it wasn't that power play, the second power play stat, although that didn't thrill me. But here's the stat that killed me. The New York Islanders played the Seattle Kraken for 60 minutes. All 6 Islanders defensemen, Schaefer, Pelech, DeAngelo, Polak, Mayfield, Boqvist, all 6 Islanders defensemen combined for 2 hits in the game. 2 hits. And both of them were by Scott Mayfield. As a team, the Islanders had 7 hits. 2 by Anders Lee, 2 by Scott Mayfield, Pajot 1, McLean 1, Siplikov 1. That's it. Now look, I know Patrick Waugh wants to play an up-tempo, skating, fast-paced style. And I'm fine with that. It's a speed league in 2026, okay? But you can't neglect the physical aspects of the game to the point where all 6 of your defensemen are credited with 2 hits in a 60-minute hockey game, and your team has 7 hits. I mentioned earlier, Mark Gatcomb was not in the lineup, and, Gatcomb wasn't recording as many hits in the last couple of games as he did previously. He had, 3 or 2 in the last couple of games as opposed to 4, 5, 6. But his absence was felt in this game. And without him, the fourth line did not have the same kind of physicality and bite. But I'm going to take you back. Go back to 2020 and 2021 when the Islanders made those runs to the conference finals under Barry Trotz. And the one thing I could say, and everydayers, if you've been listening or watching this show that long, because I was covering, I was doing this show back in 2020 and 2021. One thing I mentioned, and I still believe it's true, one of the reasons the Islanders were able to go on those runs under Barry Trotz was because they played a playoff style of hockey all the time. Other teams have to adjust their game when the playoffs come and the hitting is more intense and there's less time and space. The Islanders back then were playing playoff style hockey under Barry Trotz all year long. And it took a toll on them. And it's not a coincidence in my mind that the 2 years that the Islanders made it to the conference final were both years that the schedule was shortened due to COVID. Because it's an intense physical drain on your body to play that Barry Trotz style for 82 games and then hopefully another, 15, 20 playoff games. This team, though, this year is almost the opposite. You cannot win very many hockey games when you neglect the physical aspect of the game entirely. And everydayers will recall how many times I've mentioned this on the show. And I've gotten so many comments on YouTube and emails and comments on social media. This team needs more grit. They need more sandpaper. And I'm not saying they have to become the Hanson brothers or the Broad Street Bullies, okay? I don't need a team of goons out there. But 2 hits by 6 defensemen in an entire game? It should be 2 hits on a shift. You don't have to be the most physical team hitting anything that moves, but you can't neglect the physical aspect of the game. So when you have that little amount of physicality, you get games like you had last night in Seattle. You lose 4-1, and your whole defense has 2 hits and your team has 7. You can't be that easy to play against. The Islanders under Barry Trotz, when they went to the conference final, nobody wanted to play them. They were difficult to play against. They were a pain in the rear end to play against. I'm not saying they have to even be that physical, but they can't be this unphysical. And if you get to the playoffs and you only have 2 hits by your defenseman and 7 hits by your team in 60 minutes, you are going to be out in 4 games, 5 games max, because that's not how playoff hockey is played, even in 2026. So this is something that Matthew Darche has to address, and it doesn't have to be a blockbuster deal. You don't need to give up a lot to add a player or 2 who can play on your bottom 6 forwards or your third pair defensemen, or preferably maybe even one of each, and add a little more physicality. Hopefully that guy, and in fact, it has to be a guy who could also skate. And, you've heard Patrick Waugh say, yeah, Maxim Siplikov, I saw him in the KHL. He was a power forward. Power forwards hit people. They go to the net. They dig in the corners. 1 hit by Siplikov in this game. He didn't play it very much like a power forward. And you would hope Siplikov is like, hey, I'm in the 2nd game in a row. This is my chance. The rust is off. I'm going to go out there, no holes barred. But he didn't do it, or at least not enough. And I'm not trying to just single out Siplikov, because there's a lot of other guys who need to step up their games physically. Polak, Pelech. You can't go through a whole game with no hits. And those are the defensemen who are supposed to be more physical on this roster. Got to be better. Got to amp up the physicality, at least to average, because you're not winning in the playoffs if you can't be more physical. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and tomorrow will be the 52nd birthday of former Islanders defenseman Joel Bouchard. The Montreal native, 6'1", 209 pounds, a sixth-round pick of the Flames back in 1992. Made his NHL debut in 94-95 for the Flames, became a full-time player in 96-97, later played for Nashville, Dallas, the Coyotes, the Devils, the Rangers, the Penguins, and then finished his NHL career with the Islanders in 05-06, where he split the season between Bridgeport and the big club. Played 25 games for the Islanders, a goal, 9 points, 23 penalty minutes. He was a +5. Finished his career in the minors in 07-08, played 364 career NHL games, 22 goals, 75 points, 264 penalty minutes. Never appeared in a playoff game in the NHL. His best game as an Islander, this one's easy, March 6, 2006. Islanders visiting the Washington Capitals. Garth Snow, the goalie for the Islanders, Ole Kolzig, otherwise known as Ole the goalie, in between the pipes for Washington. And after Alexander Ovechkin got Washington on the board in the second period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Joel Bouchard, sets up Aaron Asham with the game tire. Alexei Yashin also assisting. That ties it at 1. The Islanders fall behind 3-1 after the second period. And then our Islanders' birthday of the day, Joel Bouchard, makes it 3-2 early in the third. Brad Lukowich and Mike York assist. Unfortunately, Brian Muir scores 2 more goals. Islanders fall 5-2. But for Joel Bouchard, he had a goal, he had an assist, so he was in on both Islander goals. He was even in this game, and he had 7 shots on goal in a game that no other Islander player had more than 4, and he played 19 minutes and 54 seconds. So Joel Bouchard is our Islanders' birthday of the day. If you never miss an episode of Locked On Islanders, then the Everydayer Club is for you. You'll get Locked On Islanders ad-free, plus you'll join our members-only Discord server and a whole lot more. So head to the link in the show notes or go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer for more information. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for a little instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We'll preview Saturday's game against the Buffalo Sabres, and we'll have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings as the team heads home after this long and taxing road trip. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.